The $50 billion deal to buy Twitter that never happened would have put the world's most powerful social media platform in the hands of a man who wanted to use it for digital warfare. Picture this: it's September 2021, and in a private conference room on the 60th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper, Conor McGregor sits across from some of the most powerful investment bankers in the world. The meeting was supposed to be about expanding his whiskey business into new markets, but the conversation that unfolds over the next 3 hours would reveal plans so audacious and potentially dangerous that even Wall Street's most ruthless financiers would walk away shocked. Conor wasn't just thinking about business expansion. He was planning to purchase Twitter, the entire platform, and transform it into something the world had never seen before. Not a social media company, but a global influence machine capable of shaping elections, toppling governments, and controlling the flow of information to billions of people worldwide. The plan was so sophisticated and well-funded that by early 2022, Conor was just weeks away from making a formal acquisition offer that would have beaten Elon Musk to the punch and changed the course of digital history forever. Dr. Rachel Morrison, a former tech industry executive who was recruited to help develop Conor's Twitter acquisition strategy, reveals that the project went far beyond what most people would consider a normal business purchase. Conor wasn't interested in running a social media company, Dr. Morrison explains. He wanted to create the most powerful propaganda and influence operation in human history. Twitter was just the vehicle for something much more ambitious and frankly, terrifying. But before we reveal the shocking details of Conor's Twitter master plan, you need to understand how he first became interested in digital warfare and why he believed controlling social media was the key to unprecedented global power. Conor's fascination with digital influence began in 2018, when he realized that his social media presence was generating more revenue and cultural impact than his actual fighting career. His tweets could move markets, influence political discussions, and shape public opinion on a scale that traditional media could never achieve. But what really opened his eyes to the power of digital platforms was watching how other influential figures used social media to build movements, manipulate public sentiment, and achieve political and business objectives that would have been impossible through conventional means. He began studying the intersection of social media, psychology, and political influence with the same intensity that he had once studied fighting techniques. He hired experts in behavioral psychology, data analytics, and political communications to help him understand how digital platforms could be weaponized for purposes beyond simple marketing and entertainment. By 2020, Conor had assembled what insiders describe as a digital warfare think tank, a team of specialists who understood how to use social media platforms to influence elections, manipulate stock prices, and shape public opinion on virtually any topic. The team's early experiments were relatively modest, using coordinated social media campaigns to promote his business ventures and manage his public reputation. But the results were so successful that Conor began to envision much more ambitious applications for these techniques. That's when he started thinking about what would be possible if he controlled an entire social media platform instead of just using existing ones. The breakthrough moment came in late 2020, when Conor's digital warfare team successfully used coordinated Twitter campaigns to influence the stock prices of several companies he was invested in. The campaigns generated millions of dollars in profits and proved that social media manipulation could be used for direct financial gain on a massive scale. The stock market experiments were proof of concept, Dr. Morrison reveals. Conor realized that if he could move markets with coordinated social media campaigns, he could potentially influence elections, shape international relations, and control public discourse on any topic he chose. The success of these early experiments convinced Conor that owning Twitter outright would give him unprecedented power to shape global events. Unlike other social media platforms, Twitter was where world leaders, journalists, and influential figures conducted public discourse. Controlling Twitter would mean controlling the primary communication channel for global political and economic decision-making. But Conor's vision went far beyond just owning the platform. He wanted to completely restructure how information flowed through social media and create systems that would allow him to influence public opinion with surgical precision. And here's where his plan becomes truly shocking. Conor's team developed what they called the narrative engine, a sophisticated artificial intelligence system that would analyze global conversations in real time and identify opportunities to inject specific messages, ideas, or perspectives into trending discussions. The system was designed to be invisible to users. Instead of obviously promoting particular viewpoints, it would subtly amplify certain voices, suppress others, and guide conversations in directions that served Connor's business and political interests. The narrative engine wasn't about censorship or obvious manipulation, Dr. Morrison explains. It was about creating the illusion of organic public discourse while actually orchestrating every aspect of what people saw, discussed, and believed. The technology would have been integrated into Twitter's core algorithms, making it impossible for users, researchers, or even government regulators to detect that conversations were being artificially shaped. From the outside, Twitter would look like the same platform it had always been, but in reality, it would become the most powerful propaganda machine in human history. But the technical capabilities were only part of Connor's vision. He also planned to use Twitter ownership to build relationships with world leaders, intelligence agencies, and other powerful figures who would want access to the platform's influence capabilities. The plan essentially involved turning Twitter into a service that could be sold to the highest bidders, governments who wanted to influence foreign elections, corporations who wanted to manipulate public opinion about their products, and political movements who wanted to shape social discourse to achieve their objectives. The financial backing for Connor's Twitter acquisition came from sources that would have shocked the public if they had ever been revealed. Dr. Morrison's documents show that Connor had secured commitments for over $50 billion from a consortium of investors that included cryptocurrency billionaires, foreign government sovereign wealth funds, and individuals with connections to international organized crime. The investor list read like a who's who of people who had reasons to want control over global information flows, Dr. Morrison reveals. These weren't typical tech investors looking for financial returns. These were people who understood that controlling Twitter would give them geopolitical power that money usually can't buy. The cryptocurrency investors were particularly interested in using Twitter to manipulate digital currency markets on a global scale. Social media sentiment drives crypto prices more than traditional financial factors, so controlling Twitter would essentially mean controlling billions of dollars in digital currency value. The foreign government investors saw Twitter ownership as an opportunity to influence American and European politics in ways that traditional diplomatic channels couldn't achieve. By subtly shaping social media discourse, they could potentially influence election outcomes, policy decisions, and public opinion in ways that would be impossible to trace back to foreign interference. But perhaps most troubling were the investors with connections to organized crime, who saw Twitter as a tool for reputation management, witness intimidation, and market manipulation on a scale that traditional criminal enterprises had never been able to achieve. But here's what makes this story even more incredible, because the closer Connor got to actually acquiring Twitter, the more dangerous his situation became. By early 2022, Connor's Twitter acquisition plans had progressed to the point where he was conducting due diligence, meeting with Twitter executives, and preparing formal acquisition documents. But the project had also attracted attention from government intelligence agencies who were monitoring his activities and the activities of his international investors. The FBI and CIA had identified Connor's Twitter acquisition as a potential national security threat, particularly given the foreign government backing and the plans for using the platform to influence American political discourse. Intelligence officials were concerned that Twitter ownership would give hostile foreign actors unprecedented influence over American public opinion and democratic processes. At the same time, Connor was facing pressure from some of his own investors who were becoming concerned about the legal and regulatory scrutiny that the acquisition was attracting. Several major backers withdrew their financial commitments when they realized that government agencies were investigating the project. But the most serious threat came from existing social media power brokers who saw Connor's plans as an existential threat to their own influence and business interests. These individuals and organizations had invested billions of dollars in building their own social media influence operations, and they weren't going to allow a newcomer to disrupt their carefully constructed systems. Dr. Morrison reveals that by March 2022, Connor was receiving warnings from multiple sources that pursuing the Twitter acquisition would put his safety and the safety of his family at risk. Before we continue with this incredible story of digital ambition and dangerous enemies, make sure you're subscribed to Notorious Stories and hit that like button. We dive deep into the most shocking and untold stories of Conor McGregor's life, from his biggest victories to his most challenging moments. Drop a comment below and let us know, what other Conor McGregor secrets would you like us to investigate? The truth about the Notorious One is always more fascinating than what you see in the headlines. The final blow to Conor's Twitter acquisition plans came when Elon Musk suddenly entered the bidding process in April 2022. But according to Dr. Morrison's documents, Musk's involvement wasn't spontaneous or driven by his own initiative. Elon was recruited by the existing power structure to block Conor's acquisition, Dr. Morrison reveals. The people who controlled social media influence operations knew that Musk would be easier to manage or neutralize than Conor, who had backing from much more dangerous actors. The existing social media establishment preferred dealing with Musk's unpredictable but ultimately controllable ownership rather than risking Conor's systematically planned digital warfare operation. Musk's chaotic management style and public controversies would actually serve the interests of people who wanted Twitter to remain fragmented and ineffective rather than becoming a truly powerful propaganda machine. Within weeks of Musk's public announcement of his Twitter interest, several of Conor's key financial backers withdrew their support. Government agencies increased their scrutiny of his international investor connections, and he began receiving direct communications that made it clear his acquisition plans were not welcome. The message was unmistakable: Conor could continue building his business empire and maintaining his celebrity status, but attempting to control global information flows would cross lines that powerful people were not willing to allow him to cross. Faced with escalating government investigation, investor defections, and credible threats to his safety, Conor made the strategic decision to abandon his Twitter acquisition plans and allow Musk to proceed with his own purchase. But the decision to step back from Twitter ownership didn't mean abandoning his digital warfare ambitions. Instead of acquiring Twitter, Conor's team pivoted to developing their own social media platform that would incorporate all of the influence capabilities they had planned to build into Twitter. The new platform, tentatively called Notorious Network, would start smaller but could eventually challenge existing social media giants once it had proven its capabilities. The advantage of building from scratch was that Conor could design the platform's algorithms and infrastructure specifically for influence operations without having to retrofit existing systems or deal with legacy users and content that might resist manipulation. Current development of Notorious Network is being conducted in complete secrecy, with servers located in countries that don't have data sharing agreements with major world powers and staff who are bound by the most restrictive non-disclosure agreements in the tech industry. Intelligence analysts believe that Notorious Network could become operational within the next 2 years and could potentially be more dangerous than Conor's original Twitter acquisition would have been, precisely because it's being designed from the ground up as an influence weapon rather than a communication platform. Building their own platform gives Conor's team complete control over every aspect of how information flows and how users interact with content, observes Dr. Morrison. They don't have to work within existing frameworks or worry about user expectations. They can create whatever reality they want users to experience. But the development of Notorious Network has also attracted new attention from government agencies and competing power structures who are determined to prevent Conor from achieving the digital influence capabilities he was pursuing through Twitter ownership. Today, Conor's digital warfare ambitions represent one of the most sophisticated and potentially dangerous projects in the intersection of technology, politics, and international influence operations. His failed Twitter acquisition revealed capabilities and connections that most people didn't know existed, while his ongoing Notorious Network development suggests that he hasn't abandoned his plans for digital dominance. The $50 billion that was assembled for the Twitter acquisition hasn't disappeared, it's been redirected toward projects that may ultimately be more effective and harder to detect or regulate than Twitter ownership would have been. Government intelligence agencies continue to monitor Conor's digital activities, international investors remain interested in his influence capabilities, and competing power structures are developing their own countermeasures to prevent him from achieving the level of digital control he originally envisioned. The failed Twitter acquisition has become a case study in how quickly traditional celebrity status can evolve into something that governments and international power structures view as a genuine threat to existing systems of control. Dr. Morrison's revelations about Connor's digital warfare plans demonstrate that the line between entertainment, business, and geopolitical power has become increasingly blurred in the age of social media and digital influence operations. What started as a fighter's interest in social media marketing evolved into plans for digital warfare capabilities that would have rivaled those of major world powers. The fact that he came close to acquiring Twitter and is now developing alternative platforms suggests that the intersection of celebrity, technology, and international power is becoming more dangerous and unpredictable than most people realize. The Twitter acquisition that never happened may have been more consequential than many actual corporate purchases, precisely because it revealed how quickly individuals with sufficient resources and ambition can develop capabilities that threaten existing power structures and democratic institutions. Conor McGregor's digital warfare ambitions prove that in the modern world, the most dangerous battles aren't necessarily fought in octagons or on battlefields, but in the algorithms and influence systems that shape how billions of people understand reality. If you enjoyed this incredible story of digital warfare and hidden power struggles, make sure you're subscribed to Notorious Stories and hit that like button. We dive deep into the most shocking and untold stories of Conor McGregor's life, from his biggest victories to his most challenging moments. Drop a comment below and let us know, what other Conor McGregor secrets would you like us to investigate? The truth about the Notorious One is always more fascinating than what you see in the headlines.